everybody.
Yeah.
We are really happy to be here again with you today. As you know, we have been discussing the impact that COVID-19 has been having on our families. And today, particularly, we want to speak about a very specific topic that we think has the potential to affect everybody. Recently, I've been reading in the news, and I read up to last evening an article from the Trinidad Express, which spoke to the issue of abuse and how the calls to their abuse hotlines have skyrocketed. I've also listened to some documentaries on CNN, read some news on CNN, and there have been a number of reports of increased abuse being detected in families, and have been calling the hotlines. And because it's a hot button issue right now, and because we are in lockdown and we are self-isolating, I think that is a very good topic of discussion. So this morning, or today, we're happy to have with us these distinguished individuals once again. We have with us Dr. Eulalie Semper, who is the Education Director and also the Children's Ministries Director of the South Leeward Conference. She's also the Health Ministries Director. We also have with us Pastor Carl Hastings, who is the Youth Ministries, Chaplaincy, and a bunch of other stuff, Director of the South Leeward Conference. And we also have Pastor Lyndon Elliott, who is one of our district pastors on the island of St. Kitts, joining us today. So we're really happy to have all of you here again, and we're looking forward to the discussion. All right, so enough said from me. We're talking about abuse. When we speak about abuse, what are we speaking about? Anybody? What are we speaking about? What is abuse?
Abuse, Pastor, can be any action that intentionally harms or injures anyone, another person, anything at all that intentionally harms or injures another person is abuse.
Right. It's the attempt of someone to frighten, control, or isolate an individual. And so this is very important. If this is happening in your life, you can sense that this is abuse in one form or another.
Okay, so isolation, attempting to isolate somebody is also a form of abuse. Now abuse may come in different forms. I mean, I think generally we look at it from two broad perspectives. We have physical abuse, and we also have emotional abuse. Pastor Elliott, maybe you can share a little bit on what you consider to be physical and what you consider to be emotional.
Emotional abuse is the improper use or treatment of someone as the emotional aspect, and the physical aspect is where one is intentional about what they are doing towards someone with the purpose of harming that person.
Okay, all right. So emotional really speaks more to the mind, and how individuals can use various tools, if you want to put it that way, to harm somebody emotionally. Maybe things that they would say, or things that they would withhold, or things that they would do in the context of home that may be considered as abuse emotionally. And then physically is physical force. Dr. Semper, in the context of COVID-19, in the context of us being isolated and in lockdown, how could that impact persons at home?
Especially considering that the whole idea of manipulation and humiliation and all of those other aspects are simply emotional abuse. Indeed, it can have an impact on anybody at home, whether male, female, mother, father, the child. But for the child, it can be being every day being humiliated. Sometimes even with food, intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, parents actually humiliate children, with food. Think about it, a child is eating and you say something, the Caribbean language. Sometimes somebody say, I heard that the other day. I was in a session. You're really lying. You just always eat. And you keep doing it. And you say those things in the presence of people. And children are being affected because now sometimes they're afraid to eat because they do not want you to use these negative terms towards them. And sometimes a parent can say, you're so lazy. You want to always be eating and you're not working. Remember, you're not putting any money towards this food in this house, you know. So
Okay.
those are little ways in which manipulation and humiliation can come in, and the child now will be left feeling less than.
And that can be considered as a form of emotional abuse. There's no physical damage, no hitting, any sort, but you're saying that it has an impact on the child's mind, negative impact. Okay. For the children, what about persons who are a bit older? You know, senior youth, we call them, from 17, 18 upwards. Go ahead.
In emotional abuse, the main attempt is to undermine a person's self-esteem. And this is important to know. So you can have like name calling, you can have, you know, character assassination, yelling, you know, at an individual in the home. And whereas when you were free to go wherever, you could get away from it, you could get outside. You could go to town, you could go to school, you could stay as long as you want, and you could have an excuse that you have homework or assignments. But now you're locked in, you're inside, and you know you have this constant battering, this constant calling of names. You're lazy, you're no good, and even though sometimes you may isolate yourself in your room, on the outside you can still hear those things. So here, what can happen in a situation like this? You can push a young adult to suicidal thoughts. You don't want to be in that kind of situation under lockdown where the person that is putting this pressure on you is just next door. So this could be something to really look at. And I think and believe, and as we have been reading the news, we're realizing that in a lot of areas, there is an increase in these situations.
Okay, Pastor. So
it is important to realize that the lockdown has been done.
But I wanted to ask something. You know, you're saying that in the context of where we are right now, the COVID-19 lockdown, these things become more exacerbated. I mean, it's more intense now because, you know, as you said, nobody has anywhere that they can run to. I wanted to run over to Elliot because Elliot, as a pastor of a church, you know, and you know, maybe you receive calls. I don't know. We know that the hotlines are lighting up right now across the various territories. Individuals are concerned because they're experiencing this abuse because of the fact that they can run nowhere. What's your take on it?
Well, as was said before, we are seeing this more and more. And people would have said that they would have been experiencing these abuse prior to the COVID-19. And what this crisis is doing is to exacerbate the situation. And the folks don't have anywhere to go. And so they would talk with the pastor, but the pastor cannot come to the home. And this frustrates the individual, and it puts them in a situation where they feel that, well, I will just have to satisfy myself with being abused, and I will take it and sit down because there's nowhere to go, nothing to do about it.
Wow.
And that is very frightening to know, because this can go to the verge of one wanting to take their own life.
Right. Dr. Semper, you know, as you shared earlier, I was thinking that for children, in our last session, you spoke about the inability of children to cope as well as adults can cope. I remember you saying that very clearly. My question is, you know, how do children then manage if they're experiencing this type of emotional abuse? They can't really put their fingers on it because they probably don't even know what's happening. But you know, how can they manage this? What happens?
You know, especially for children, it's always advocated. That is why it is so important that children have this supportive network, because they do not possess the ability to filter. I mean, I'm talking about the younger ones, the 8 and under, to filter and say, you know, it's because of my mom's love for me, or it's because my mom is having a problem with my dad, why she's behaving like that. Children do not reason like that. So in terms of asking the children themselves to be able to manage this, it's like you're asking the impossible. What I would just encourage children, because somebody's responsible for the child, and that's why we have children and we have parents. And the parents' role is so critical in sort of providing that platform, that basis for children to feel good about themselves. Parents, siblings, family members, that supportive network is important for children at this time. So we encourage them, get on the phone, call granny, call auntie, call uncle, call somebody who you can connect with and hear from them.
Okay. In our culture, you know, people say, oh, you're soft. You know, if you say something hard to them, like you were saying, oh, your belly long, and if the child cries or complains or says it to somebody, you know, our culture says to the person, oh, you're soft, you need to grow up, you need to harden, you need to get strong, you need to broaden your back. You know, what does that do for the child? You know, is it confusing?
It is confusing. It is confusing. That's why I'm glad that parents will be listening at this time. It is confusing. How can you do the impossible? Toughen up on. What is toughness? Toughness is not having persons beating up on you. You know, it's never good to beat up on anybody. It doesn't matter, it's child or adult or whomever. It's not good, and it has nothing to do with culture. Sometimes it's a way adults, we feel better because we're inflicting pain. And that in itself is a problem that we have to look at and try to manage ourselves so that we can better manage our children.
But sometimes, too, it's hiding something that is happening on the inside of the individual. Might have been having a problem over the years that they are trying to control, trying to get rid of. And sometimes this is the way of, you know, relieving that pain, that pressure. And so sometimes they throw it out on the children in that form. So it's very important, but there's no such thing as toughness. And we have to realize that, you know, it's contradictory to the mind of the child when that child has been taught that, you know, this is the way or normal way of doing things. And then they are seeing these things happening on the other end.
Yeah. So we encourage parents faster to say more, I love you, I care about you. You know, the love language that the children best understand. We're in homes with them now. Hug the children, let them know that we care. And in times of this self-isolation is a good time, we said it yesterday, we're saying it again, to connect to the children. When last, parents, mommy, daddy, have you said to your young one, I love you?
What we are having here is a double whammy or a double whopper, because usually the abuser is the one who was abused. And the COVID lockdown is a perfect environment for the abuser to function effectively.
Wow.
And so they're exercising all of those abusive powers within the confines of the COVID-19 lockdown. And that is posing a challenge, because usually church and work would be an escape for abusers. But now that abuser is within the home and is locked down for 24 hours. And so they call the children stupid. They physically slap the wife, they beat the wife, they do all these things, because that for them is a perfect environment in which they can function and be effective by abusing.
Wow, that's amazing, Pastor. I mean,
slap the wife, Pastor. Pastor Elliott said slap the wife.
He said slap the wife, yeah.
The wife, Pastor, just wanted to interject there. Slap the husband, slap the man, slap the woman. You know, different people get.
Nobody
just wanted to throw.
Nobody escapes. I mean, you know, the man gets slapped, the woman gets slapped, children get slapped, even the dog gets slapped. You know, so you know, even the dog, even the pets. You know, we're speaking now about the fact that you may have an abuser who is a spouse, and because of the lockdown as well, you know, one spouse is constantly being abusive to the other, and we can turn it around, because we know the statistics say that wives are generally abused more than husbands are, but husbands are also abused. Can we speak to that a little bit? Yeah,
abuse happens, and I mean, it's a sad thing. And to know that men hit women, but you have a lot, it's happening more and more. The persons are using their physical power in order to intimidate others. And you can actually, the violence can happen, that you have the hitting and the tugging and the pulling, and actually having a physical contact, that abuse that's taking place. But also have, similarly for the children, you have that the verbal abuse and the mental abuse, and when one leads to the because verbal can actually lead to the mental. So we have the hitting and the pulling and the tugging and the biting and that physical aspect that causes that physical injury, pulling of the hair, all of those things, you know, happening. And then we also have the sexual abuse. Sexual abuse happens now in homes, because even in the articles that you're referencing, many forms of abuse that's taking place now, the sexual abuse is also a part of it. And we have financial abuse, and now we're in crisis. It's a coronavirus crisis, COVID-19 crisis. Money is short. There's always the financial abuse, the withholding money or using money. There's so many different types. So all of these can be taking place now, or are taking place now, forms of abuse in the homes. And we just trust that even as we explore this, that persons will understand that it's good to treat people well.
It is also a fact that not only women and children are being abused in the home, but men too are being abused, and sometimes too ashamed to talk about it. And we need to understand, however, in a situation where we have a shutdown, whether it's a female, a male, or a child that is being abused, I think it is important for us to address how to deal with this abuse in a situation like that. Because sometimes people are trying to defend themselves, people are trying to cease or end the abuse, and sometimes to their own detriment. So we have to really, I think, address how to deal with abuse in a situation of a shutdown like this.
Okay, thank you. So again, Pastor Elliott, just coming to you quickly, and then we're going to switch a little bit. Does abuse happen in Christian homes as well?
Oh yeah, most definitely. The Christian home is not exempted from physical abuse and all the other abuses, and we ought to be mindful of most of what we have happening within the confines or the context of Christianity and the home is that the abuse is covered up so that it would not bring shame to the family. Maybe it's the pastor, a well-known pastor, it's a well-known elder, a well-known youth director within the church. And for peace sake and for the name of the family and the prestige and so on, abuse is covered down. And now we are finding out within this COVID-19 lockdown that this thing is real, and families are complaining that this abuse is really a serious problem.
Wow. Thank you for that, Pastor. So we're talking about abuse. We've been helping people to be able to identify it. We've spoken about withholding finances. We've spoken about the emotional abuse of calling names, of harsh tones, of shouting, of yelling. We've even spoken about physical abuse to some extent, slapping, hitting, pulling of the hair, those types of things. Yeah. So when abuse is identified in the home, then what? We realize that the situation is like a pressure cooker. We used that term last time. Everybody's locked in. There's nowhere to run. What does a person who is experiencing abuse do when they recognize what's happening?
I think the first thing, if you have access to a phone, you could call the hotline. 911 is always an ideal number to call to let them know that this is happening, but you cannot do it to the knowledge of the individual or the abuser. So you have to do that privately. Secondly, if you do not have access to a phone, because sometimes in a situation like this, you can be shut down. They can cut you off from the outside world by plugging out the internet, plugging out the telephone, taking away the cell phone. You just have to play it easy in the home, weather the storm. Try as best as possible, if it is physical abuse, to defend yourself as best as possible, because that is very much possible. Yes, if you can get out, if it is physical abuse and you think you need to exit the house, you will need to get out there, even if it's in a time of shutdown where you might be charged, because sometimes that might be the only thing to save your life, to get outside of the house somehow by some means. But by all means, Try to play it calm, try to play it cool.
Okay, that's good. And for the abuser, for those who may not be the abused, but for anybody who is the abuser at this time, we're appealing to you to love yourselves and transfer that, change that hate approach, because it's really hate. Because
Right.
we love the people we love, we cannot ill treat. So we're asking you to love more and stop. Don't hate, don't hurt. Just love yourself.
Because some people think that they deserve that type of behavior, treatment, I'm sorry. They think that maybe I've not been good enough. A wife might think maybe I don't cook well enough. Maybe, I'm not intimate enough. Maybe I don't take care of the children, take good enough care of the children. And so, my spouse has a right to hurt me, or a husband might feel I don't bring in enough money. And so may feel like, I deserve this. And what you've said is absolutely powerful. Nobody deserves to be abused on no stretch of the imagination, under no circumstances. Abuse is wrong. It is absolutely wrong. Yeah. And so, people need to understand that you don't have to accept this type of treatment.
One of the things I want to mention too is that in a shutdown situation like this, I think as family members that we need to call more frequently.
Yeah.
Sometimes a person is being abused, they cannot get any outside, they cannot get outside, they cannot call out, and sometimes nobody knows what is happening on the inside. If you're calling and you cannot get them, then you have the sense that something is happening there. Something might be wrong. And so even a visit, you could even call the police to say, look, I'm trying to call my relative, I'm not getting them. I want to know what is happening. It's not normal. I'm accustomed getting them, but now there seems to be an issue. So by doing that, you can save a life. You can shut down a situation before it escalates to a point where it can become a crisis in itself. So very importantly, I want to address family members out there who might, have relatives. And sometimes that there are social issues in the home. There are things that are happening there that could end up in a situation. But by calling and keep calling, you can cut down on the abusive situation in the home.
Thank you for that, Pastor. That's very insightful. Just checking up on each other, I think, is really, really important. Calling a loved one, seeing how things are going. And again, we have a culture of silence, Dr. Semper, where people don't like to talk about what's going on. You're being abused in the home. Your spouse is yelling at you, shouting at you, calling you dumb, stupid, foolish. You never get anything right. And now that we're home, it's more I'm seeing how ridiculous you are and how stupid you are. And you're sitting down there. You feel embarrassed. You don't want to tell your sister, your uncle, your brother what's going on. We are saying that, look, hiding it doesn't help. And sometimes, the issue is, well, that person is the breadwinner and you don't want to get them upset because they might tell you to leave. But at this point in time, what's more important is your sanity and your self-esteem.
That's right. And right now, I think that's I like what the Antigua government is doing. Antigua, they get strict, and persons out there on the street that should not be there, they're trying them and sending them to the prison. I like that. Sometimes people need to have consequences. So women, do not be afraid. Stand up. Have the guts to stand up and silence them. Men too, but women, definitely, women are being abused much higher percentage. The pastor will speak to that when he comes. But for now, speaking to the women stand up and be counted. Do not allow the man in your life to abuse you. Call.
But it is so important. It is so important because, someone listening to this might just think that they can just put up a fight in the home. It's so important for you to be wise about how you resist. You have to be very careful not to try to fight your own battles by yourself there, because someone who is stronger than you can overpower you, and then it can become a problem. So we want you to be able to, use the medium that you have. I think we may be able to look up that number before we finish this program.
I have it up on the screen right now.
They could, yes, thank you. So that they could call. I know it's something 555.
Yeah, 463-5555.
And get their matter addressed so that, this abuse can stop.
Right. Do not stand up. Do not give persons permission to abuse you. to give that permission, because sometimes we give the permission
Correct.
by being afraid, by being so quiet. Come on.
Right.
Do not give anybody permission to abuse you. Do something about it. There's the number. You had that number. At least you can call the number, call a friend, and don't suffer in silence.
Yeah.
All right, folks, our time is just about expired. What an interesting discussion. We may need to do a part 2 on this one, just to really strike it home. But as we close this today, could you just give us a very brief wrap up, each of you, just a half a minute, just to say, conclude. We'll begin with Pastor Elliott.
As church members within the family, the context of the church, this is the perfect opportunity we have for those who are being abused and have been covering it up over the years. This is the perfect time for you to speak up and to speak out so that we can give you help and help you through this.
Thank you. Pastor Carl Hastings. Pastor Hastings.
Yes, I just want to join with Pastor Elliott in saying to any young adult out there right now that because of the shutdown that you have been in the face of your abuser more, and you're thinking that it is okay, it's all right, you're thinking that you're here because of something that you have done nothing wrong. I want you to know that it's not right for anyone to abuse you, and you have a right to stand up, and you have a right to call the appropriate numbers where you can get assistance and you can get alleviation from this issue.
Yes.
But I want you to know God loves you, you're fearfully and wonderfully made by God, and keep on trusting in Him.
Yeah. All right, Dr.
And
Semper.
to all our children, and parents too who may be listening, there are words that we just want to just echo every day. I am wonderfully, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Think of words like courage and resistance and positive attitude, and have the courage to do what's right and to stand up for what is right. God bless you. Keep hoping and keep trusting.
And I want to say quickly to spouses, to husbands and wives, this is not the time to hurt each other. This is actually the time to love each other. There may be challenges that you're experiencing. You can avail yourself to material on how to resolve issues and how to resolve conflicts. We know that, you're not in your regular scenario situation. You're struggling a bit, but be patient with each other. Be patient with each other. Love each other. Gentlemen, never put your hands on your wife, and wives, never put your hands on your husbands. The only hands that you should put on them are to hug them, embrace them, and to love them. All right, so we want to leave that with you. We thank you for being with us today. Dr. Semper, Pastor Hastings, Pastor Elliott, thank you so very much. And we just look forward to our next session. May God bless you all as we continue through this COVID-19 time. We want to come through on the other side successfully. God bless you.